Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our session today. We're doing networking, making quality connections. My name is Nigel. I'll be your producer for today's session. And my role here as producer is to support Shannon, but also to support you. If you have any questions or concerns about how your technology is working or anything behind the scenes, feel free to send me a chat. I'll let you know that we are recording the session today. It will be available to you after the session. I'll put the location into chat here in just a moment or so. A couple quick housekeeping things. We'd like you to stay on mute through the session just to make sure that we keep the overall noise down. And I'll draw your attention to the fact that we do have interpretation services here today. If you want to select interpretation off the menu across the bottom, you will have that available to you. Also, we will be using the chat. Shannon's going to ask you for some comments in the chat a little bit later on. And we have enabled the Q&A. So if you have any specific questions, you can use the Q&A. A couple other things on that bottom menu, your Zoom menu. There is a reactions icon down there. If you want to use that to support one of the things that Shannon is saying, maybe give a thumbs up, feel free to use the reactions. Yeah, that's just a quick overview. Quick reminder, once again, we are recording the session. All right, Shannon, I'm going to turn things over to you. Networking, making quality connections.
Thank you so much, Nigel. I just love his voice. Doesn't he have a great radio voice? So great. I love it. Folks, it's so great to be back with you. I was just saying to Eva how strange it's been that we were so used to connecting every week, and now, you know, we've kind of slowed things down a little bit just to make it a little bit easier for folks to catch up. Encourage you, if you are joining us for the first time, that you go back and maybe take a look at some of those pre-recordings. As usual, though, if you've joined me before, you know what's coming next, right? So I'm about to ask you if you are on a scale of 1 to 5. Nigel's going to put up that survey for us. And on a scale of 1 to 5, how did you show up today? So 1 being, you know, I'd rather be anywhere else but here, but I know this is good for me. Or 4 or 5, going all the way up to I am fully present. I'm all here. Can't wait to talk about what we're going to talk about today. Love it. We're watching some of those answers come in. I love it. And you know why, for those who've joined me before, why I asked this. But maybe if you're new, you don't know why I asked this. And it's 2 specific reasons. One is so that I can, perhaps if I see some people who are, you know, really not present, they're here because they know it's the right thing to do, or they, you know, they want to learn, but maybe there's competing priorities. Maybe you got a lot going on in your mind, or maybe we've got some, you know, issues that we have to deal with, or, you know, perhaps we've just, you know, had a rough morning. That's okay. What that allows me to do is understand how to meet you where you're at. The best part of it, though, is this gives you an indication after reflecting on it of how you're showing up. And so that you then in turn have the ability to actually decide to move that marker. So if you are struggling, please just take this second to breathe it out, let go of some of those competing priorities for just for the hour, let go of whatever it is that's robbing your attention, and decide to be fully present, because today we're going to talk about making quality connections, what that looks like. I know many of us, when we get involved with direct sales, there is that resistance. And mostly it's because we're like, well, how do we do this? You know, I'm not a salesperson, you know, I don't want to, you know. And so, but what happens is often we become so passionate about the products that we're using that we can't help but share, because we know it's going to help somebody else. And that's really exciting. So just let go of some of those competing priorities, and we'll jump right into it. Nigel, I think, have you posted the results yet? Let's see. Perfect. All right. So we've got a fair amount of people showing up at between 4s and 5s. We've got some neutral and poor, and that's okay. Thank you so much for doing that for me, Nigel. I appreciate it. And for those of you who are attending, thank you so much for engaging. You know, it's difficult sometimes when we have a webinar, and it's difficult because it's a little harder, especially if we have large groups of folks, to get in and to engage. So I always use the chat. We use some polls sometimes just to make sure that we've got your attention, because this stuff is important. Okay, great. Thank you for that. All right, so today, what are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about networking, and we're going to talk about the specifics of networking and the best way to do that. Networking is more than just exchanging business cards or, throwing a bunch of names on a list. However, we will talk about the list and how that can help in a few minutes. But it's really about making quality connections. And that's what we teach at TAP. And I know that that's, the culture at Healy. We want to make those quality connections that really are meaningful. They are not superficial. And we want to make sure that we're actively engaging others so that we can share and help them and help, maybe we help them solve a problem, or maybe we connect with them to help them feel part of a community, or because we've talked about this before, right? We've talked about that people get involved with direct sales, not only for the product, however, that's generally the leading reason, but it's also about being part of a community that cares. It's also about you sharing something that might be able to help others and make a difference. So we want to make sure that we're engaging with others. We're seeking oftentimes common ground, but that's not always the case. You don't have to be the same person as the person next to you, but being able to learn from them really helps. Being able to gather different perspectives really helps. What we're trying to talk about today is fostering those genuine interactions. So, of course, that involves things like actively listening, showing empathy. And I'm going to ask you in a few minutes what you think it actually involves. But at the end of the day, they're really built on that mutual respect and trust and a willingness to have a two-way relationship. Ever been in a relationship? You can give me an answer in the chat. Have you ever been in a relationship, a friendship, any kind of relationship where you're the one who's only ever sharing vulnerabilities? You're the only one who's ever, engaging. Anyone ever been in something like that? I was talking about this with some of my friends this weekend, and we were talking about, how I've got a really good friend, and she struggled at first because she had a tendency to not trust people. And so when I first kind of came along, I would share what was going on, and she'd be super supportive, but she would never share what was going on with her, because that meant that she would have to be vulnerable, and being vulnerable would mean that that can feel risky for some people, especially if they've been hurt in the past. And so what we want to talk about is, how do you foster those relationships that are really two-way? Because at the end of the day, we need to understand whether there's a need and whether we can meet that need. So that's going to take a little more than, hey, I've got a product, I think you should buy it. That's not going to work, right? What we want to do is create those genuine connections. So I can see on the chat, we got a few people who know what I'm talking about. We've been in those relationships where it's sort of one way, and that's difficult. So let's talk about how to get out of that situation where it's one way and we've got kind of caring and sharing that's happening. Ultimately, making those quality connections and networking means that you are connecting in a way that creates a network of folks who, first of all, it's two-way. You're inspiring and uplifting each other. You're contributing to each other's personal and or professional development. And so, so let's kind of explore. Now, many of you, especially if you've, been in this industry for a little while, you've probably got a good understanding of how to do this. You may even be naturally just really good at it. But for those of us who maybe overthink, we get uncomfortable because it doesn't always feel genuine, or we're afraid that people will perhaps think that we're only there for one reason, and that feels uncomfortable for us and them. What I want us to do is actually talk a little bit about how we can get through that obstacle, that boulder, so that we can actually go out there and help people. We want to get in front of it, right? All right. So networking is pretty simple, actually. Essentially, you want to grow your base of people that you know, that you connect with. You want to have a list of folks that you can connect with on an ongoing basis. You want to build friendships. You want to find out from those friendships or relationships that you're building whether these are people who might be able to benefit from Healy. And so that's called qualifying leads in a sales term. But what we want to say is essentially you're going to go through your list of folks and understand, build a strong enough relationship where you've got two-way dialogue, where you're understanding whether, this might be helpful for them. Maybe you've got a friend who's really struggling because they don't have a network of or an inner circle of support. And just simply by being part of a Healy family would really make a difference in their lives. That is what I talk about qualifying leads. It's a sales term, and sometimes that makes us feel uncomfortable, but I want to simplify this for you. I want you to understand that when you're out there and you're connecting with these people, your genuine desire to help others is what should be leading you, not selling your product. That's not what should be leading you. It should be going out there, finding out the people that you can help. So that's one way that you can help. Maybe another person is like, I'm really struggling and I just need an extra $250 a month. If I had an extra $250 a month, that would make me feel like that would help me go from completely stressed out to being able to breathe. And so maybe there's a solution there for them. Or maybe, they have struggles in a way that the Healy device can help them. And so this is another way in which you can help people. So you want to be thinking about, as you build those quality connections, make them genuine, but go into those relationships really being intentional about understanding, is there something that I could help this person with? That's actually what qualifying leads is. It doesn't feel so cringy, does it? And then in order to continue to grow that relationship, you want to be building trust. So you don't want to be jumping into sales pitches. You don't want to be really, really pushy. You want to build those genuine connections with them. So what do you think? I'm gonna ask you, what do you think helps you, where do you think you can build some of those relationships? So I want you to use your chat and I want you to write down some of the places and ways in which you think you can make those connections that you don't currently have, okay? Those new connections. I'm going to wait for some of those answers.
Just a quick reminder, the chat icon on your bottom menu, it's about in the middle. You click on the chat icon, and then you can send a message and make sure you address it to everyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nigel. All right. So we've got professional athletes, networking groups, gym, school. Yeah, there's so many ways in which we can connect with people. So I'm just going to show you a quick little slide here and give you some ideas about how you can make quality connections anywhere. And this is to really help you overcome some of those initial objections you might have and say, well, I don't know how to meet people. I don't know, but actually you can meet them pretty much anywhere, school. So we've had some of those, church, work, through family connections. Perhaps you do some volunteering. You might get referrals. That's a great way to get to know new people that you don't necessarily know at all or have a connection to, but maybe you've got some customers who are very, very excited about Healy and what you do, or not. but they also respect and love or care about you, and they know, it would legitimately help. Maybe they're saying, well, I'm seeing my friend Sue, and she's just so happy, and she's got this incredible family of support, and someone, maybe it's Scott, and Scott needs that kind of connection. So sometimes people will give you referrals even if they're not a customer, so which is very interesting. Of course, we've already heard the gym, neighbors. I'm thinking about this weekend when I was here in lovely Kelowna. And of course, it's my brother's house. It's not my house that we're staying in. He was so gracious as to let us come and just celebrate my daughter getting married. And the neighbors just came over, and they brought people. So they saw that we were having fun and laughing, and they just came in and said, hey, what's going on? So you can meet them even through your neighbors. Of course, social media. And we will talk specifically about social media in a few minutes, kind of near the tail end, because I know that this is, there's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of probing where people really want to understand, how can I use social media to help build my business or help other people understand what Healy can do for them. So that's definitely something. And then, of course, in your community, it might be at the playground with your kids, could be at the grocery store, could be, at the beach, whatever you're doing. These are great ways in which we need to, or we can look to make connections. So the key, though, around successful networking. So we're going to talk about networking first. So that's going out there and just meeting people. And then how do we take those people that we meet and create quality connections with them? So essentially what we're saying is, when you're out there in your community, you need to, if you want to build, that list of people that you can help, and you really want to make an impact by staying in your room and locking your doors and looking out the window, that's not going to help you. Okay. So you actually have to be purposeful. You need to get in the habit of getting out there and maybe going for a walk on the trails, or, instead of choosing to order your groceries online, you decide to get out there in the grocery store and be friendly. You do have to be creative. So this is something where you can kind of think about today on, what are the creative ways in which I can put myself in front of other people? And you need to make it matter. Now, how do you take those quick connections, let's say at the grocery store or at the park with your kids, or on the walking trail? Maybe you've seen the same person 3 times and you start a conversation. Well, essentially, in order to get, to begin to develop quality connections with those folks, you really have to be intentional. So you have to set an intention on, I met Tom at the grocery store, and I really believe that I can help Tom. So I'm going to be intentional about creating a quality connection with them. Don't go in hot and heavy. Okay. What you want to do is ask Tom about his kids, ask him about, what he enjoys doing. Maybe you folks go for a walk or a run, or maybe you enjoy a glass of wine together, or maybe you go for a coffee. Whatever it is that you do, that is genuine and authentic to you, what you want to be doing is just being intentional and inviting people into your space. Another thing that you really need to do is be consistent. Now, I want you to write these down or take a snapshot of this slide, okay? Because these are 4 really simple things that you can do to truly begin to change the people that you meet in your community on a day-to-day and turn them into quality connections. And it's only when you create those quality connections are you going to build enough trust in order to actually connect with them to find out what they need and whether you have a solution that can help. Okay. You want to be innovative. And innovative is really just another word for creative. You want to think about and brainstorm ways in which you can take this quick little meeting with someone and turn it into a conversation that might lead to a second conversation, that might lead to a 2-way relationship where They're now reaching out to you, not you just reaching out to them. And you need to be valuable. And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying lead with Healy first. I'm saying offer the relationship that you're building something. You'll get to your Healy device. You'll get to that. Okay. What you want to be offering is a shoulder or laughter or genuine interest and curiosity, where those people are seeing you and going, wow, I want to know this person more. That's what you do to create quality connections. All right. Now, there is a bit of a, and I think this is fairly new in the direct sales space, in the network marketing space, whatever it is that you want to call it, okay? There is a bit of a pushback, I guess, or difference of opinion, where people think, we want to do attraction marketing, so we're not going to create a list of people that we want to connect with. I want to know, would you agree that creating and tracking a list of connections would be vital to growing your business? And I want you to say yes or no in the chat. And I want you to tell me why you think it is vital or why you don't think it's vital. And I'm going to look for some answers. And Nigel is going to be so kind as to start annotating this on the screen so that we can see some of these answers, okay? So tell me, you're telling me yes, but I want to know why. Fabulous answer. Love it, Spencer. Okay, so we don't have any no's, so that's great. I love where you're going with that, friend, with accountability. Yes, for follow-up. I love the word, Pamela, nurture, to nurture that relationship. Yeah, love it. So I'm glad to hear that I don't have to try to convince you that this is a good idea. So at least for those of you who are using the chat, you're telling us that, yeah, you do see some value in it. So I love that. Oh, yes, 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 Divina. You are on. Oh, yeah, you are on point here. It's about keeping notes of things that you can mention so that you can follow up with them later. They've got a sick kid. They just adopted a dog. They just, going through a hard time. They just finished a marathon. Like, these are all ways in which we'll show intention. We'll show that, hey, this person actually genuinely cares. So I just talked about being valuable. Well, that's the reason. That's exactly it. We're being intentional. I'm just going to read through some more of these. These are fantastic. Love it. Yeah. Okay. So folks, you're bang on. I see that there's a real knowledge and understanding that those lists are important and why they are important. So I love that. Thank you for answering it. What we want you to do is we really want you to spend some time creating those lists. Now, here's the next question. I want an honest answer, and I want you to use your reactions button, okay? Honest. How many of you consistently, I'm not saying you did, oh, I did it once or twice, so I'm going to put my thumbs up. No. How many of you consistently create and track a list of people that you connect with? Thumbs up, thumbs down. We don't know. Right? Does that mean it's like, oh yeah, I'd like to say that it's yes, but anyone vulnerable enough to say, no, we don't do it? We've got lots of thumbs up. What's the crying for? I need to understand. The laughing out loud, I love it. Thumbs up. So nobody's a thumbs down. You each consistently do this? For real? If you don't know where your reactions button is, you can also put your answer in the chat. We always go there. Okay. All right. So the answer, Spencer, no, not always, right? Thumbs down. Yeah. Can't find the thumbs down. Okay. So yes, you got lots. Yes. It's for no, but I know I should be. Exactly, Allison. So it's like, oh, I just got called out. Hey, what am I for? What am I there for, right? It's to push you, to inspire you. That's why we're doing this, is why we're having these conversations, so that you can actually kind of go, oh, be reminded of this is very important. Thank you. I love this. Not always, but I need to. Yes, for sure. And there are apps out there. I'm going to give you something a little more simple. Okay. So Nigel's going to be so kind as clear the screen for us. And we're going to go to the next slide. And I'm going to show you a worksheet. So we've got these action sheets. I've told you before. We're pretty simple when it comes to solutions. We don't think that it needs to be overly complicated. But we do have a worksheet. Nigel, you'll put that in the chat for folks to download. As well, Eva will likely put them in some of your social channels as well, to make sure that you can access this. This is such a simple list. And essentially what we want you to do is write down those connections. And we've just given you some tracking. So we've said, this person is interested in community. They're interested in the product. We need to follow up with them. We give you a little bit of notes. And we also have you track how many times you followed up with them. So how many times do you think it takes, how many connections and follow-ups does it take to make a sale generally? Many of you probably know this. 7, good answer. I would say that the general answer is 8, but you're really, really close. So you want to be tracking those, okay? Making sure that you're following up these folks, unless they've, of course, told you to go away. And you want to be respectful. Love it. Okay. We've got some Spanish. Oh, okay. Sorry. That's just just Nigel. Ignore me. All right. So we want you to keep it really simple. Okay. And the way to do that is you can create your own list. Okay. I'm not saying you have to download this list and this, it doesn't matter how you, maybe some of you are spreadsheet people. I am. So I would keep this online. And I would track it online. But if you want to print it, then many of us still like to put pen to paper. And this is a really good way, because then when we're out and about during our days, we can have access to that. So however way you do it, just do it, okay? And do it consistently. Fill in your list. And if you're brand new, this is what we generally say is your warm list. How many of you know what a warm connection is? How about we get someone in the chat to tell us what that means? Thanks, Davina. Someone you know. Exactly. Yes, a warm list would, a warm connect would be family, friends, acquaintances, colleagues, like any of those people, okay? So warm list is someone you know. But in order to get to a warm list, generally you have to connect cold to begin with, unless they are family or in your circle already, okay? So it's really easy to start with that warm list, okay? So start connecting that way, and then we'll build that, that other list as we go along. And what our recommendation is at TAP is that you are doing your very best to add 3 to 5 people to that list daily. Now, when I say daily, and we're very specific on the slide, you can see that. We're actually talking about each workday. So some of you may be building your business 5 days a week. You may be working Healy full time, okay? That's what, then we're saying, each new day, try to add between 3 and new 5 people. And if you're working 5 days a week, full time, then that's what we're saying. But if you only work 20 hours a week, then cut that in half. And if you only work 10 hours a week, cut that in half. And maybe you only work a few hours a week. That's okay. Maybe you add 3 to 5 people every 2 weeks. Maybe you add them every month. That's okay. But what we are saying is the goals that you set generally when you've set aside, or you've said that you're going to work your Healy business full-time are generally in line with full-time hours and success. And so what we're saying is, depending on where you're at, you want to be adding consistently. And we will talk about our daily activity plan in another webinar. So just hold tight for that. We'll give you a little bit more connection, but just think about it this way. If you work 1 day a week, 8 hours, let's say, or 10 hours, then you want to be doing that weekly. And if you're working 20, you want to do, between, 1 and 3. And if you are working full time, then between 3 and 5. Okay. All right. So you want to start warm. So we already established that starting warm means you're going to start with people okay? People that you can help. And I'm not going to go through the list on the right-hand side of the slide. We've just put them in there to kind of jar your memory on. These are the people you already know. These are already, they're already people that you have in your network, all right? I see that you've raised your hand, Pamela. If you have a question, by all means, go into the Q&A and ask it, and we'll address it either at the end or we'll address it, in another session. So we'll just go right ahead and throw your question in the Q&A. All right, so remember that the value, or part of the value, is about the brainstorming. It's getting into the habit. It's going, okay, so, let me always think about ways in which I can meet people so that I can help people, right? And you always want to have more people on your list than you can ever connect with. We don't want you to burn through that list. We want you to build quality connections. And so what I mean by burning through your list is going out and spamming 100 people at a time with a cringy message or a message that's not creating a quality connection. We're saying we want you to actually build a quality connection with every one of your network. Every one of those warm or even cold connections or contacts. And so, yes, you'll have a long list. You can have up to 100 people on those lists, but we're not asking you to, and we would highly recommend that you don't connect with people in this mass big emails and throwing them out. What happens then is you will break trust with those people right away. They'll see that you're spamming them. They will block you. They will hide you. They will not entertain you. They won't read your messages. And now, instead of those 100 connections that you could have made quality connections with, you've now what I call burning through your list, where you've not put in the effort. You haven't been creative. You haven't been intentional. You've really just gone out and spammed them. So this is very, very important. And as you make those quality connections, as you're like, okay, I'm starting to build a relationship with someone, maybe they won't be your best friend. Look, we're not saying, add 100 people to your inner circle. That's probably not the best thing to do. But what we are saying is connecting with people with intention. And with that intention of what is it that motivated you to start building with Healy. It could be that you just want to share Healy. It could be that you love the community so much. You're like, there's so many lonely people out there. If they just understood the community, the sense of community that I feel, I know that would fill a need of so many people. So you're going out there and you're being very intentional about it. All of a sudden, it doesn't feel like cringy sales, does it? It feels like you are living your life with purpose. You are living your life, not only sharing a product that you believe and has a massive impact on you, you're also helping other people feel that connection and helping them. Okay. All right. So let's continue. So like I said, Nigel's already added you sent this list to you. So hopefully you can start just by simply starting a conversation. It's really not that hard. You create your list and you fill it out and you add. That's it. That's all that there is to it. Okay. But just remember, I think what we've got to do is we've got to remember that a big part of connecting is communicating. And communicating is not talking at, it's not spamming. It's, as you can see on this word cloud here, it's being present, it's being respectful, it's being safe, It's about being genuine, engaging, being energizing, bringing passion, bringing value. That's what you want to be doing. So think about the ways in which you connect. Think about the ways in which you want to show up. Think about the things that when people talk to you or they reach out, maybe on social media or at the grocery store, what is it that you appreciate when you're connecting with people and what drives you crazy? So go ahead, use the chat. What is it? And you can answer either or both, okay? What is most important to you when you're communicating with someone, especially if it's someone new? Because what we want you to do is put yourself in those people's places so that you don't do those things that kind of drive people away. Or what is it that drives you crazy? Or you're like, it's uber cringy. It breaks trust with me right away. What are some of those things? Talk to me. Let me see what you're having to say. Looking for the chat. What's most important to you when communicating and what drives you crazy? And people who use conversations to hit on me, right? Like my LinkedIn, I'm like, dude, like, why are you? Oh, yeah, I get it. I get it. High pressure drives me crazy. So cringe. Absolutely. Oh yeah. That's a pretty big sign when someone's not making eye contact with you. They're kind of looking around. Like it's like, yeah, that doesn't build trust. Fake smiles. Yeah, definitely. And here's the thing, folks. I mean, we've talked about this before. Now more than ever, people recognize people who are being authentic and genuine and people who are not. And go directly to selling, like, oh yeah, I haven't seen you in 25 years. Do you want to see my product? You want to buy it? Here, buy two. Oh, okay. So this is a really big one, Pamela. Acting like they know what I need. So they come in, oh my gosh, I have to tell you this one. So it's like getting these, I'll get followers on Instagram. I hope you're all connected with me on Insta and LinkedIn or wherever it is that you're there. But I'll get these messages sometimes from these randoms. And someone will say something like, love what you're doing out there, blah, 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 blah. And here's my new weight loss product. And I'm like, that's making some really big assumptions that I want to lose weight, that I need to lose weight, that I want you to make a comment on my weight, right? So these can be really, really cringy. Yeah, I would say, Jonalyn, hopefully I'm saying your names. I'm not butchering them. I'm doing my best, but you can always correct me. But yeah, I think and I think that's more of an objection as opposed to a communication style. And if you have seen, some of our previous webinars and some of the ones coming up, we definitely talk about that. So yeah. All right, so you've given me some really good things. And what I want to say is you need to be intentional about how you show up. So some of you may be having aha moments in these moments where you're like, oh, I do that. I send out mass messages. Don't do it. Stop. What you want to be doing is creatively connecting with those people. And you don't need to go out with 100 connections. You need to go out with 2. Like settle down. Make quality connections and nurture those connections. And that is what's really going to help you. But you have to be patient, right? I think that a lot of times when, or oftentimes, I wouldn't say a lot, but oftentimes people will see those, really successful professional network marketers or direct sales professionals out there, and they see that they've, done really, really well, and they want that for themselves, and they get impatient. They think it comes overnight. But I can guarantee you, those people who've made a really big impact in their direct sales companies as, distributors or members or whatever it is that the company may call them, and in our case, of course, it's members, is they have put in the work. This didn't happen by accident. You don't build a direct sales business by accident. You have to figure out how you're going to show up. So that's my question to you. I want you to think about. So I asked you that in the beginning of our session. I said, how did you show up? Well, guess what? If you're going to build your business, you need to make an intention of how you're going to show up. So if you spend 5 hours, focused on your Healy business, then you need to decide how you're going to show up in those 5 hours. Because if you don't, you will just show up based on your mood and what's going on. You need to decide how you want to show up. And with that also comes some branding. So I've got a little slide here where it shows a little bit of different ways in which you can show up. And there's many different, I'm just giving you some ideas. So you can decide that you, as part of your personality, you're super cute, you're super friendly. This is how you're going to be. But maybe you're a very assertive, very strong person. That's okay. All we want you to do is be authentic. We don't need you to be cutesy and friendly if that's not who you are. We want you to be who you are. And you need to be consistent with how you show up. So if you know that sometimes you're showing up, in your Healy business or in your day-to-day, and you're allowing your mood or the traffic that happened on the way to work affect how you're showing up, you need to stop and pause and decide, just like I asked you in the beginning of our session, you need to decide in that moment that you want to show up differently. And I think that it's very important as we build our brands, our Healy brands, our individual Healy brands, where we decide, am I going to be that young and innovative, creative person that I'm going to, come in? Or am I going to be that classic, mature, professional? Doesn't matter. There's no wrong answer here. It's who am I and how do I want to show up? And will I be intentional that when I am working my business, whether it's 2 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, or 40 hours, that I consistently show up in that space, okay? Maybe you're casual, maybe you're formal, maybe you're edgy. I wonder what I am. Yeah, so I push the boundaries. I want to show up passionate and exciting. And do you think I always feel that way? Genuine. Do you think, I do this on the daily, do you think that every day I show up with this kind of passion and energy? There are times when I don't feel it. And I have a conversation with myself to say, okay, you know what? For the next 4 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes, whatever it is that I'm showing up, I literally take a deep breath and I decide and I lean into how I've decided and committed to showing up, because I want to be consistent and I want to make the impact that I've set out to do. You need to do the same. All right. So, it's about your communication style, but it really is about the decision on how you want to show up. And the question is are you attracting or are you repelling? Now, I'm sure nobody in this call is repelling people. But my question is do you know someone who does? And why? Why do you think that they repel people? Maybe it's because it's ingenuine. Maybe they dive into that sales pitch. Maybe they're really, really centered on themselves and they don't have a two-way dialogue. That person who comes in and you can't get a word in edgewise and you're like exhausted when you leave, right? So you really want to not only decide the type of professional you want to be and how you want to show up, but then you have to be consistent with the behaviors to create those quality connections, right? You need to figure out who your personality is. And with that, if you are being this like broad person, so I want to be cool and innovative, and I want to be young and edgy, but I also want to be professional and I want to be mature. And if you're picking everything, then you're not necessarily leaning into who you are. And that's what gives you an edge, because with that edge, you can create a niche. So decide how you want to show up in the world and then lean into it. And you will then create a little bit more of a specific niche, whether that's on a social media presence or the way that in which you meet people at the local grocery store, okay? But whatever approach you choose, there are things that we want you to consider, okay? You want to consider, no matter which way, you're edgy, you're classy, professional, you're casual, any of those which seem to be kind of opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to personality and how you represent your business. But we still want you to be respectful either way. Okay, so edgy doesn't mean not being respectful. It means still being respectful, right? And I'll let you read through some of these. I don't want to read them all. There's a couple that I think that are really, really important. One is polarizing topics if you're building a business. Now, interestingly enough, I had a conversation with my marketing manager, and we talked about this because I have specific opinions on things, and I'm like, I want to be authentic, and I want to talk about these things, but I also need to understand. And my marketing manager was like, but you also need to understand, Shannon, as much as we want you to be authentic and genuine, you also have to understand that if you get into these polarizing topics, you may divide and it may affect the people in which you are trying to help. And that for me was very important. I don't think that, I have to decide what hills I'm going to die on. Let's put it that way. Okay. So I may decide when it comes to inclusion, that's a hill I'll die on. I believe everybody deserves and has potential. That's a hill I'll die on. I don't care what color their skin is. I don't care what community they belong to. I believe that everybody has potential. So for me, that is my brand. And so you need to think about what your brand is. And it doesn't have to be what mine is. It just has to be genuine and authentic to you, okay? Remember that those ways in which you connect with people, the way in which you communicate, whether you're an active listener, whether you have two-way dialogue, whether you're respectful in your communications, if there's no communication, if you're not talking to people, there's no trust. So if you go in hot and heavy with no previous communication, but you just send out this mass email, guess what? Trust doesn't exist. You're not going to build it that way. You need to communicate. You need to connect. Now, here's the thing. With no trust, there's no connection. So you can't build quality connections when you're not actually having dialogue. And without connection, see how this said, it's not without communication. What we've said is without connection, not without a genuine connection with people, there is no business. And we've learned that. We've seen it over and over and over and over again. The most successful people in our businesses are people who are putting in the work. Okay. So what makes that real connection? What makes that real connection with people? Talk to me. What do you think makes that real connection? In the chat. Janice, thank you for being vulnerable about your comment there, because listen, you don't learn unless you make mistakes, right? Listening. Exactly, Marianne. I love that. Yeah, connect and listening to them first. Having those casual conversations. Finding commonality. Absolutely. Or here's the really cool thing, or finding something that's different about someone and being genuinely curious to learn about what that is. Preguntar. Tell me what this means. This is not a word I'm familiar with. I'm like, now I have to look it up. But Claudia, are you going to tell me? Yeah, being curious about them, to be in the present. I love it. It means ask. Okay. I love it. Thanks, Nigel. Appreciate that. So let me show you. I mean, there's a ton of way in which you can do this, but what I want to say is essentially it's really about empathetic listening, being professional, being inclusive, bringing good energy to the table. It was interesting. This is a newer kind of like I would say in the last decade for me, of really focusing in on energy in my own life and really being present of other people's energy, but also my own, and recognizing before I walk into a room how important it is that if that energy is heavy, or if it's negative, or if it's sad, I can share that energy, but I have to understand what the impact is. So I always go in intentional. Like, I'm going to shake this off because I'm going to bring good energy into the room, being present, engaged, personal. So these are all things in which we can show up in the best way possible. And this is a really great little diagram. It's something that we created at TAP, and we specifically did it for our network marketing or direct sales clients, because we really did understand that a lot of people were like, well, can you tell me what a sales funnel is? And I'm like, okay, but we want to make sure that we're doing this in a way that's not systematic. We want to do it in a way that builds trust and builds relationship. And so we call this our quality connection funnel. Okay. And essentially, it's creating that list that we just talked about. It's about making a connection and really connecting. It's about exploring that relationship in such a way that you can discover whether you can help them or not. It's about consistently following up, because that builds trust. And it's about once they have purchased, that you don't just drop them, because guess what? Even if they assume that you're being, or believe that you were being trustworthy and genuine in the beginning, and then you don't follow up with them after they've made a purchase, that's bad for business. They're not going to make a referral. And in fact, they may even hop on social media and say, yeah, I got all this positive attention until I purchased. And then, I didn't exist anymore. That's cringe. So we want to make sure that we are continually supporting the people that we're connecting with. Okay. So hopefully that makes some sense to you. And I think what's really important, and we will continue this conversation because an hour isn't very long. So I wanted to see how far I could get today, and we'll definitely add some of these things to our the conversations we're going to have over the coming months. But I do want you to be aware, and if you were in, I talked about the consumer journey and our journey as Healy members who are building our business. I think I did that in the first keynote that I did for you. I was in Vegas, and you guys are all like kind of all over the place. And we did this keynote on one of your first conventions. And I talked a little bit about this. And so for those of you who were there and saw that, I want you to just remind yourself of how important these steps are, and how to actually observe and be aware of when someone's going through a specific journey. You have a job to do. Okay. So on the screen, you can see essentially when someone is considering purchasing something. So let's call that a customer. Okay. They begin to become aware of whatever the product is. In our case, it's our Healy devices. Okay. So someone somewhere has shared it. They've seen it on social media. They have a friend who has a Healy device, and they become curious about it. It's like, what is it that you're wearing? So of course, this tells us why it's so important for us to actually show and be a product of our brands, right? And then what they start doing is they start, maybe there's an interest that begins because they're just curious, or perhaps they've been told about something that would meet a specific need. So they have a specific need, and someone then in turn tells them, you should check this out. This could really help. And then what they'll begin to do is they'll begin to research the solution, and they'll do that in many, many different ways. Likely the first thing they'll do is go online though and Google it. Okay. So they'll start researching, depending on what they find and the quality connections that they've made with the person that spoke to them about it first, they may or may not start considering a solution. Now, this might be a hard no, and it might be a maybe, and it might be a hard yes. Chances are it's somewhere sitting close to the middle. So it's like, sure, generally people don't just jump in feet first. That's why it's so important. I'm going to show you this step in a second. So then what happens is after they've considered that solution, they're going to make a decision, whether it's yes, no, or not right now. Okay. And based on that decision, they'll likely evaluate it if it's a not right now or a yes. Okay. So they'll evaluate if it was a yes, how they've been able to be successful using their device, whether or not they've had the support to learn the things that they need to learn, whether or not they understand exactly how their Healy works. So these are all things that they're going to begin to do as they evaluate. And if let's say you stop here, if they stop here and they evaluate, it's like, yeah, I thought this was going to be really good, but the person that introduced it to me disappeared off the face of the earth. So they're not following up, they're not supporting. If education was difficult to find, so they couldn't quite know how to use their Healy properly. If they were interested in the business and they don't understand how to build the business, and there's no one there to teach them, they haven't been onboarded properly. If they purchased their Healy so that they become part of a community, and then they did not find their community, and people they were not inclusive and brought them in and helped them become part of the family, guess what's going to happen, folks? Yeah, you made a sale, but they don't become loyal to you. They don't give you referrals. And in fact, they may even do the opposite. So they may then in turn go, I purchased this, I didn't know how to use it. I purchased this, but I was interested in starting the business and I had no one to teach me. I purchased this and, whatever the case may be, I didn't find the education that I needed. So this becomes really, really important for us as people begin to go through this journey with us, that we are there every step of the way. So I'm going to show you what your steps are. Okay. So this is your journey as a Healy member who is really trying hard to make a quality connection. And we're going to stop here after this one. But you need to make that quality connection as they become aware. And so that's connecting with them in a genuine, authentic way. As their interest begins, you need to understand and discover that need. So just because there's an interest in Healy, don't assume it's because they want to start a business. Don't assume it's because they want a sense of community. You need to actually ask the right questions or find out why they're interested. It may be very different than why you got involved in the business. Then, of course, as they begin to research the solutions that they're looking for, you can say, I know that you've been looking at different ways in which you could build your social network and really create a supportive community. I have a solution for you. So would you consider it? This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is the difference it made in my life. And so you begin to share that. Now, as they're considering, they're going to have some questions. Don't be afraid of those. They're going to have some objections. Don't be afraid of those. What you want to be doing is you want to be answering and addressing their questions. And as they come to a decision, you need to support that decision. You need to help them with that decision. If it is not right for them, then don't push the issue. Maybe it's not right for them right now. Don't push the issue. Be patient, be kind, be genuine, and make sure that you're helping them make the right decision for them, not you, right? As they're evaluating, most important is to make sure you're supporting them, because they're going to be evaluating whether you were there for them, whether you gave them a good onboarding experience, whether you answered the questions that they had. Maybe you don't have the answers, but you're like, you know what? I'm going to find them. I'm going to help you. And if you're following up frequently, if you're being that strong support, they will become that loyal customer. Okay. Making a quality connection doesn't just come from making conversation. Okay. All right. So we just have a couple of minutes left. I think that Nigel is going to be really kind and put up our survey. You've heard me say this before. You'll hear me say it again. Those surveys are key to know whether we are providing you with what you need. We are working closely with Healy to make sure that when you come into our webinars, that you are feeling empowered, you're feeling supported, that you in turn are someone who is on that consumer journey yourself and going, yes, I have received everything that I need in order to become loyal, to become an advocate for Healy. So if you don't give us that feedback, we can't give you what you need. So I know, and I know in our previous calls with some of the Spanish folk, they're like, hey, you should know, we don't like surveys. Well, just so you know, they're completely anonymous. We do not know who's giving us we just get a group response from these surveys. So be as specific as you can. That can really help us. We'll know what we're doing good. We'll know where we need to get better. Okay. Really quick reminder that our next session next month is going to be on, and it's not going to be August 14th, because guess what? We're on August 14th. So I will tell you where it'll be. It will be September 11th. So I changed the title. I forgot to change the date. So these are the webinars that are coming soon. And we're going to talk a lot about influence and understanding the modern workforce. Okay. And so this is a very interesting topic. If you were at convention or at our sessions in, where did we go? We went to Florida and we had a bit of a discussion about this. We're going to talk a little bit more about it. It's going to be a really interesting topic. This is our #1 topic that folks ask for. So make sure that you join us. And another quick reminder that tomorrow afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in, we will be exploring onboarding. And we're going to talk really specifically to our leaders. So this is by invitation only. So if you are leading in this space, we're going to talk really specifically. I know we did the webinar on onboarding. It's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be for leaders who are building teams. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. Okay. So it's been a really great session with you. I want to thank you for the way you showed up. And I hope that you find some value in this. So I'm going to stop sharing now. Nigel, did you have anything to add? Any responses you're seeing?
Sure, just a last quick comment. I did put the link to the evaluation in the chat, and I've also put the link to Shannon's socials in there as well if you want to stay tuned.
Awesome. Sure would appreciate that. That's for sure. Folks, thank you so much. It is always a pleasure. So how do you get invited? That's a really good question. And I'm not quite sure what the criteria is, but you definitely need to have certain leadership. Maybe Eva, you might be able to give a little bit more information, or Adriana, on what is it that they have to, like, how do they qualify to get into the leader call?
And David, I'm just going to answer your question quickly. If you scroll up in the chat, I did send a link earlier on to a private YouTube channel where the past recordings of these sessions are located.
Ah, there you go. So Adriana has answered that question. She said it's executive director and above. So if you're not quite there yet, this is an incentive to work hard so that you can be in some of those facilitated conversations. They're quite fabulous, actually. So it's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, so Adriana said that we send an invitation every month to those who qualify. So if you do qualify, make sure you're looking for that. I love Letitia's comment. Thank you very much. It was illuminating for me. Oh, that's the kind of feedback I love to see. Thank you so much, Sarah Gonzalez. I love it. You're absolutely welcome. Thank you, everyone. Make sure you go in and do that survey. I'll be looking at the results this afternoon. It's something that I'm very passionate about. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful day. Take care.